There is constitutional invalidity regarding Mr. Baloyi's attempt to take the statement of accused number 2, who has not yet cross-examined Mr. Baloyi, Mr. Sibiya, and that is frowned upon by section 9(1), and consequently also it infringes section 35 of the Constitution regarding the freedom of a litigant or an accused person to give evidence and attack the evidence of a co-accused if he so desires. Consequently then, the ruling I made against Mr. Baloyi of accused number 2 to cross-examine accused number 1, because of the experiences which I have mentioned, that no pronouncements have been made regarding the status of the statements or confessions or pointing outs. The case is still ongoing. Okay.
The session opens with some brief housekeeping. One of the accused is reportedly unwell. Suffering from stomach cramps, Judge Ratha shows concern but allows proceedings to continue after confirming that the accused can proceed. He even shares a light story from his past about similar situation in another trial, revealing his human side before turning serious about today's legal issue. Judge Ratha delivers his long-awaited ruling, emphasizing that this is a ruling, not a judgment, on whether Advocate Baloyi can cross-examine an accused using another accused confession or statement. He explains that the issue is not just procedural, it's a constitutional matter. Advocate Baloyi wanted to use the statement or confession of accused number 2, which is Bongani Tanzi, to cross-examine accused number 1, Mr. Sibiya. Judge Ratha questioned whether that was even lawful, as it might violate Section 9 of the Constitution, the right to equality before the law, and Section 35, the right of an accused to a fair trial to challenge evidence against them. He cites precedent cases: Jono and the State, Alfred Diseko Musi versus the State, S versus Batman 1929, and the State versus Mtanga SCA, to show how distinctions between confessions and admissions have historically been treated unequally, violating constitutional fairness. He explains that both admissions and confessions carry the same danger. They can unfairly implicate co-accused if misused. The court, he says, has not yet defined whether the statements made by accused 1 or 2 are confessions or extrajudicial statements. Don't know if I'm spelling that correctly. And until that status is clear, it will be unconstitutional to use them against one another. Judge Ratha rules against Advocate Baloyi, siding with the defense's constitutional argument. He finds that using the statements of accused number 2 to cross-examine accused number 1 would violate equality before the law, Section 9. It would also infringe on accused 2's right under Section 35 to give evidence freely and to challenge evidence later in the trial. The court has not yet made any official finding about whether the statements are confessions, admissions, or executive statements, so they cannot be used for a cross-examination at this stage. In his final words, Judge Ratha confirms the ruling made against Mr. Baloyi's stance is that he cannot use the statement of accused 2 to cross-examine accused 1 because no pronouncement has been made regarding the status of those statements, and the case is still ongoing. This effectively halts the state's strategy and strengthens the defense's constitutional footing in the trial. And right there is where things get interesting. Because for weeks we have seen a pattern in this courtroom. The state has been pushing boundaries, sometimes testing the limits of what's fair and what's constitutional, all in the name of pursuing a conviction. But today Judge Ratha drew the line. He reminded everyone, the Constitution doesn't bend for the state. It protects the accused too. Even when the public wants answers, even when the case is politically loaded. Now, whether you like this ruling or not, it forces us to ask questions. Is this trial still about justice for Senzo Meyiwa, or has it become a constitutional chess game between the state and the defense? Because let's be honest, every time the state overreaches and gets pulled back, it delays the truth. And every time the defense scores a constitutional point, it exposes cracks in how this case was investigated and prosecuted from the start. Judge Ratha may be unpredictable, but in this moment, he was legally correct. He upheld the Constitution, and that's something even the hardest critics can ignore. This trial keeps testing South Africa's justice system, and every ruling, every objection, every argument tells a story far bigger than the murder of Senzo Meyiwa. It's about how the law itself is applied, who gets protected, who gets silenced, and who ultimately pays the price. If you are following this case like we are, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment with your thoughts on Judge Ratha's ruling. English is running out of me. Was he right to block the state, or is this just another delay tactic helping the defense? This is the hot seat essay, where we don't just watch the courtroom, we decode it.
All right. The common law exception. At common law, there is an exception to the exclusion of extracurrial statements of co-accused if the statement constitutes an executive statement by an accused. This court has not made a finding that the statements of any of the accused, one or two, are executive statements. Persons or people must remember that this case is still continuing. That election will be done by this court at the end of the case, after all the parties have addressed the law, the facts. But at this moment, this court is still continuing. Only one accused person has given evidence, although he has not yet completed his evidence. So that's the reason I say I'm not interpreting the law. I'm just saying this court has not as yet said any of the statements here of either one or two constitute an executive statement that is by an accused. It may be admissible against a co-accused if it was made in furtherance of a common purpose or conspiracy. This court has also not made a finding as to whether all these accused before court acted in pursuance of a conspiracy or a common purpose.